Football Manager is a game where details matter. Slight tactical tweaks in a game and before a game can make a whole difference in whether you get 3 points or not, but it is a very complex game. There's a lot to it, and it's not easy to know absolutely everything that you can do to master tactics, but today I'm going to give you 5 advanced tips to take your tactics to the next level. That's right, today we'll be turning you into tactical masters in Football Manager, showing you some things that you can do to get the best out of your team. Now, the tips I'm going to go through today come from the brilliant FM who wrote an article for the FMSCOUT webpage for us about these tactical tips. I'll leave that link below because there's even more on there than what we're going to cover in today's video. But if you want more little tidbits of information like that, some of the best FM content around, you can find it on his Twitter, FM_stag, or you can head to his website where he has his own blog at FMSCOUT.com. So a big shout out to him for writing this article, because I'll be totally honest with you, I play this game a lot, I make videos on it on the daily, and I didn't even know half of these things, so hopefully you guys won't either. If you do go on to enjoy it, make sure you smash the like button for us, subscribe for more, and let me know how many of these 5 tips that you knew in the comments down below. If you somehow knew all 5, then congrats, you're an FM genius. But let's get into tip number 1. Now, there's going to be a mix between tips before a match and also tips that you can tweak within a match, but this one is probably, out of the 5 I'm going to cover, the one that some of you might know, and even then, it's still a pretty hidden feature that most people don't know about unless they watch videos like this. I mean, we've covered it in a few tip videos before, so this is one that I can put my hand up and say, I knew this one, this isn't totally new to me. But did you know you can switch where your players play during a match without having to do it manually? So in game, maybe you decide that you want Sancho to play on the left because you think it will cause more havoc for the defender there, and you want Shoulder Up to move over. Now, a lot of us will go to the tactics screen during a match and then switch them, as you can see here, but there's an easier way to do it. All you need to do is select the player tab up here in the tactics screen. This is something that used to be really easy to find, but they have hidden it now, and then you want to select the position in question. So if you want your wingers to switch over, all you need to do is click that wing position, and then it says swap positions with. Here you can choose what you want to happen, whether it is as simple as we say, for him to regularly switch with the left winger, or maybe you want to do something different. Maybe you potentially want him to switch with your striker, have Nicholas Jackson come out wide. Maybe you want Cole Palmer to occasionally drift to the right side, in which case you'll ask Sancho here on the right to swap positions with him. This saves you having to do it manually in game, and what will keep happening during the match is these guys will keep swapping positions, drifting into each other's spaces, which will mean the defenders will really struggle to pick up the runners, they won't get used to who they're playing against, and it might give you that advantage in the game to earn a little edge. So that's the first tip covered, and whilst that is the most obvious one in this video, I still think there's probably half the people watching this who didn't know that, but the tips are about to get more advanced as we go, so that's the first tactical tweak that might improve your game. But let's move on to tip number 2. Now, for the next tip, we're having to go into an actual match situation. So here we have the Club World Cup, where we're playing against Inter Miami, and as you can see, we're doing pretty well at half time, but they are having the lion's share of possession. They're playing a lot of passes, probably because they've got Sergio Busquets, to be honest. Maybe that's why their football is so nice, but we can make some tweaks here at half time that can dramatically improve our chances in the second half. Of course, nothing here is a guarantee. Football Manager is a game where you can do as much as you want in terms of tactics, but things could still go wrong. There is a luck element still to how things go, but we can analyse how Inter Miami are doing and try and weaken their game by clicking this Analytical Data button. Now, the screen you're about to see I know is quite scary for those of us who aren't very familiar with all these graphs and data. I know personally I'm not, and this isn't something that I would normally do at all, but seeing how easy this tip was from FMSCOUT, I thought, you know what, it's something that I'm going to do from now on for sure, because it really can just elevate your game that little bit and make you react to the match situation. So when you come to this screen here, instead of summary, you want to go to the team section. This will then take you to basically a section of graphs that you can take a look at to try and divulge some information from. But don't worry too much, keep it very simple. All you want to do is go to the passes section and then click this box here. Here we have all the passes that have been completed in the game, all 364 of them, and if we click the drop down arrow here, we can see the most common combinations out of those passes. So the most common way that the Inter Miami players made their passing was Alexander Callens to Marcus Lopez, which is their centre back to their left back. So we know the majority of their football is going down that side. Now we'll keep that in our brain for a second and we'll check what the other common combination was, and that was the goalkeeper to the centre back. Probably nothing we really need to worry about, that's natural in a game of football, but the only other standout combination was Marcus Lopez and Jordi Alba, the left winger and the left back. So what we're seeing here is that Inter Miami are playing a lot of their football down the left. Now, this is where we have to choose whether we want to react to to this or not? Because of course there's some situations where you'll look at that and go, you know what, I'm happy for Inter Miami to do that. Maybe their most talented players are actually on the right, so for them to play it down the left, we're happy for them to do. We also know they've only actually made one key pass out of all those passes that they're doing, so maybe we can let them play their game and hope we get a chance. Or we can choose to be reactive. From knowing this information that they're playing down the left, we could adjust our tactic to have someone a little bit closer to the touchline sitting on that left back, or we can go into the opposition instructions and drill down on this specific passing combination. So if we go back to the halftime screen, we can go to opposition instructions. From here, we can go and select Alexander Callens, who's the man that's making the majority of the passes and also the best player so far for Inter Miami. He is a good passer, he's composed on the ball, but we're going to choose to press him. To do this, we're going to go to this trigger press option and click always, and then Marcus Lopez is the left back that's receiving it, so we're going to go to tight marking and click always too. Now the whole point of that was to try and nullify any kind of threat that we were seeing from Inter Miami down that left hand side and just give us that 1-2% extra chance of getting the ball back, creating an extra chance, and in theory giving us an extra percentage opportunity of winning the game. So that was a bit more of a complicated tip, but now we're going to go into a very simple one, which is basically a simple button click which will completely change the way of how you review your tactics. So we've lost this game to Newcastle 4-3 here. Let's jump in and show you what you can do to easily watch the position of certain players. Now you don't necessarily have to be in 2D mode to do this, but FMSCOUT suggests that if you are trying to watch a tactic maybe in a friendly or a game isn't going too well, what you want to do is to set it to 2D mode and then go to comprehensive highlights so you can really see how your players are moving, not just in those key moments. But in this case, we're not doing it during a match, I'm doing this after a match to see if there's any tweaks we can make to the role of our midfielders, let's say. So let's say I was focusing on Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo and I wanted to track them. If we were watching this game, the highlights as normal like this, it'd be pretty hard to see who is who purely based on the numbers. But what I didn't know you can do, FMSCOUT has taught me this, if you hold the control button and then click on someone's name, so there you go, Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo, if you control and click on those players, now as we play the highlight, whether they're on the ball or not, their names are going to be highlighted. Now, normally it only highlights the names of the people on the ball and the ones involved, but by doing this, I can keep an eye on Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo and see if there's any tweaks that I want to make to their positioning. So the thing that I wanted to show you really was the fact that you can highlight these specific players to keep an eye on them. Again, you can do this during a match. Let's say you were trying a new tactic in a friendly, you could keep an eye on how your fullbacks move, how your wingers interact, how your centre mids move, whatever it is. But I've actually found something watching these highlights back where I thought, you know what, if I was actually in a match situation during a game and I had this selected, I would have been able to stop this goal that you're about to see going in by tweaking the tactic, and I just wouldn't have noticed it without having the names highlighted. So if you were just seeing names and dots here, you wouldn't really know who's where. But what I've noticed right now with the names on is that Enzo Fernandez, he's our centre midfielder, and right now he's kind of occupying useless space. So Newcastle are on the attack, Kieran Trippier is their number 2, their fullback is inverted into midfield and nobody's picking him up. Now, in an ideal world, in a normal game, I would have spotted this, that he was doing this inverted move a long while ago. I would have been able to tell someone to get close to him, or maybe Enzo Fernandez to mark him tightly as he comes through the midfield. But in this case, because I didn't see it happening, because I wasn't really aware because I had nothing highlighted, Kieran Trippier's got all the room in the world. And you'll watch Enzo Fernandez, the man highlighted, this is on him. He is doing absolutely nothing. He gives Trippier all the space in the world to run into, and he eventually scores after a double deflection, but we won't talk about that. So yeah, the main thing that I wanted to show you is this simple button click that will allow you to keep track of your players a little bit better during a game. But what I've actually done from this is easily found something that I could have fixed, which could have turned that whole game around. Next up, we have tip number 4 out of 5, and remember, there is an article linked in the description from FMSCOUT with 10 in total, so there's another 5 that I haven't covered here. I've tried to leave the more conceptual ones for that article so you can read his brilliant descriptions of how to do things. But this one is something that I knew existed, but I wouldn't really have looked into, but it can really help you when your tactic maybe isn't going to plan and your players aren't playing the way that you want them to. So did you know that on this screen here, with this tactic screen, I mean, there's buttons that people don't even use, like clicking this button, which allows us to see the spaces on the pitch, but there's one that I've never really looked at, and it's this third icon here, Show Tactical Familiarity. What this then does is it shows us who who is missing tactical familiarity on this tactic. So as you can tell, the team doesn't have full familiarity playing this tactic, and therefore they won't be playing great. But by using this individual section here, we can see the players that do know what they're doing and the ones that don't. Now, if we take a look at someone like Cucurella and we hover over this bar here, we can see he is accomplished at everything we're asking him to do, from marking, tempo, width, trigger pressing, and the role that he knows. Whereas someone like Caicedo we look at, he's fluid with the trigger press, he's fluid mentally, and he's accomplished everything else. But when we see the position slash role slash duty here, he is awkward in the role we're asking him to play, which is box-to-box midfielder. Now, from this, we can learn a few things. One could be that maybe we want to use Caicedo in a different role, but again, this is your tactic. You don't want to make it too individualized for a certain player. So it's about finding the balance between the tactic that you want to play and the positions your players are able to do. But clearly there's something we need to work on here, because he doesn't really understand his role in the system, and therefore he's not going to play perfectly in game. Now, if we were to highlight box-to-box midfielder, he's actually the perfect midfielder for it. So why has he not got much tactical familiarity when really he should be good in this role? Well, it's something that we might want to work on as we head into our pre-season now with Chelsea. We want to get him familiar with playing this new position. So what we can do is we can go to training and we can go into his role, and we can make sure in his training he is focusing on box-to-box midfielder. What we should now see over time is that that bar will go up. He'll then become more familiar with the role and play it at a better level. So it's not suddenly going to make your tactic work a million times better, but this tool you can use to start to perfect the way you're playing. We learned from this that we need to focus Caicedo's training a little bit more, but we've also learned that Cucurella is very good in this tactical setup in terms of knowing his role. Does it mean he's going to be better than, say, Levi Cole in that position? Not necessarily. Levi Colwill could have a better game than Cucurella, but what we do know is Colwill's going to be a bit more awkward in the role, which means he won't play the way that we might intend him to as regularly, and that can be the reason why. So by viewing this tactical familiarity, we can get to grips with how our players work in the system and see if anybody needs any tweaks to either their role or potentially their training, or just something to take note of as we go forward. So as we move into our final tip now, make sure you like the video if you are enjoying to this point, and be sure to check out all of FMSCOUT's socials once we're done. But this final tip is a pretty simple one that you can implement that can massively raise your chances of winning a game. And I'm actually going to hold my hands up and say this is something that I actually do when I play FM, so I can be very happy and say that I at least knew this one, but it's something that can massively benefit you during a match. So let's imagine we're in a match against Manchester United and we see one of their players pick up a booking. Now, often when you're playing FM, you don't even think of it. You just see, okay, they've got a booking, maybe he'll get sent off later, that's it. But what FMSCOUT suggests you do, and I'm going to suggest it now in the video, is that you react to that yellow card. So let's say we're playing Man U and Luke Shaw gets booked, right? Playing left back, he's booked, he's on a booking. You might leave this and do absolutely nothing, but we want to take advantage of that. Knowing Luke Shaw is on a yellow, we want to put him in an uncomfortable situation where he either has to decide to go in for a tackle and risk a red card, or stand off our winger and allow us to create a chance. He might not care, Luke Shaw might be able to manage this perfectly well, but sometimes you can get a great result out of doing this. So if Luke Shaw was booked, for example, what I would say to our team now is to start focusing our play down the right hand side. You can maybe raise the tempo should you need to for the next 10 minutes or so as you try and go down his flank. And what we're either going to get is Luke Shaw is forced to potentially risk a red card going in for a tackle, or what often happens I see, and FMSCOUT mentions this in his article as well, is that Luke Shaw will decide not to go in, step off, allow your right winger more space, which can create a chance. And that might be a chance that you wouldn't have got otherwise. It could win you the game, or potentially in a perfect world, get Luke Shaw sent off and Man U down to 10 men. So if you see someone booked, try and take advantage of that. If there's a defensive midfielder struggling, maybe try and play through the middle. My perfect combination really when I see a fullback get booked is to focus play down their side, raise the tempo a little bit, and then ask our team to dribble at them a little bit more. This will hopefully create more opportunities, or hopefully commit their fullback to a foul to get him sent off. And again, you don't have to do that all game. You could just do it for 10 minutes if you want to, and if it doesn't work, you can go fair enough, let's focus play elsewhere, because what you don't want to do all game is always focus a play down the right. Let's say it was Nicholas Jackson against Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw might be on a booking, but maybe Luke Shaw's got him under wraps and he's handling him. Maybe he's a better player by far, and by focusing and play down that side the whole time, we might actually be worsening our game and potentially underutilising all the other good players on the opposite end of a pitch. So you don't always have to do it forever, but if you do see an opportunity, if you do see someone struggling, pounce on it. It doesn't even have to be if the player's on a booking. If they're just having a bad game and really struggling that day, maybe they're injured or carrying a knock, focus play on them for a little bit. See if you can't create a chance from it. So there you go. There's 5 tactical tips from FMSCOUT that you can use to raise your game. If you want another 5, the article will be linked down below, as well as all of his socials, and of course my own channel as well, should you want to check that out. But thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.